Beneath sunlit waves, something waits in the dark. A torpedo of muscle that launches from below, delivering a single, crippling bite. This is the great white shark, nature's cold ambush. Why can one strike from underneath end a life in seconds? Our question drives this descent. How does a predator become a blood-sensing vertical missile in blue silence? Call it brutality or brutal efficiency. The shark times a single bite to cripple and extract. We follow that moment, the launch, the impact, the biology behind the violence. Meet the protagonist, great white shark, Carcharodon carcharias, a living fossil turned engineered killer, shaped by millions of years into a perfect, cold-blooded ambush predator. Imagine an animal that thinks in acceleration, builds speed silently below, rise vertically, score a crippling bite, disappear. The ocean becomes a vertical theater of death. This video answers one dark question. How does the great white detect, plan, and execute a one-bite takedown from beneath? We trace senses, muscles, teeth, and instincts. Picture a seal at the surface, unaware. Below, a predator narrows distance, calibrates angle, then launches upward like a submerged bullet. That upward strike is everything. It sounds cinematic, but it's biology. The great white's tactics are ruthless economy. One decisive strike that maximizes damage and minimizes energy spent. Brutal, efficient, terrifying. Throughout this journey, we'll peel layers. Anatomy that enables the launch, senses that detect blood and movement, and behavior that turns lakes of blue into ambush corridors. First, the hardware. Muscle, skeleton, jaws. The great white's body is a living torpedo tuned for vertical acceleration. Every bone and fiber is an instrument of force. Start at the tail. A crescent caudal fin built for explosive bursts. It stores kinetic potential, then transforms it into upward thrust, sending the shark from depth toward the surface. Rigid pectoral fins act as hydroplanes. By angling them, the shark converts forward speed into lift. It's not gliding, it's a power maneuver, physics applied by evolution's hand. Under the skin, red muscles produce sustained swimming. White muscle fibers release sudden bursts. That white muscle is the explosive charge behind a vertical ambush. The vertebrae are linked like a spring. Stored energy bends and releases, increasing acceleration. That spinal architecture makes a shark less a swimmer and more a living catapult. Eyes adapted for contrast see shapes against surface glare. But vision is only part of the sensorium that cues the launch. The great white balances sight and other, subtler signals. Inside the snout, ampullae of Lorenzini, electroreceptors that taste the faintest nervous impulses. A heartbeat, a flinch, a muscle tremor. These register as maps for attack. Olfaction in sharks is a paralytically precise instrument. Their nostrils detect molecules in parts per billion, following scent plumes like a hunter on a trail of blood. The lateral line, a row of pressure sensors, reads ripples and wakes. It tells the shark where prey moved minutes ago, allowing an intercept trajectory calculated in muscle memory. Now, the jaw. Serrated, triangular teeth sitting on replaceable racks. Each tooth is a blade designed to slice flesh, detach tissue, and then be replaced when damaged or lost. The bite force isn't a snapping trap alone. It's combined with body weight, momentum, and shape. A rising shark uses hip and tail torque to amplify jaw damage massively. Teeth detach with ease. Sharks regenerate rows throughout life. One crushing bite leaves tissues ragged, ensuring hemorrhage and shock in the victim. A biological objective fulfilled. Circulation. Sharks maintain high blood volume and oxygen efficiency. Their muscles tolerate low oxygen bursts, enabling repeated explosive ascents without immediate collapse. Neurology favors reflex over deliberation. Fast motor circuits link sensory input directly to muscle output. A reflexive launch can occur before conscious evaluation, optimized by selection. Blood detection isn't abstract, it's a timed trigger. Minute hemoglobin traces aroused predators, but the decision to attack is gated by size, angle, and energy calculus in the brain. Skin texture matters. Dermal denticles reduce turbulence, letting the shark cut water seamlessly. Less drag means more efficient acceleration. The body is a hydrodynamic missile. Compare juveniles and adults. Juveniles rely more on stealth near reefs. Adults develop power to breach from depth. Ontogeny shifts tactics as bodies scale and teeth sharpen. Carcharodon carcharias combines all these systems into one lethal synthesis. Anatomy and senses converge into a predator that senses, calculates, and launches with surgical timing. Hardware aside, behavior writes the script. Hunting strategy is a choreography. Approach, assess, launch. Each stage is a risk-reward calculation in cold, efficient terms. Ambush sites are chosen with geological precision. Drop-offs, kelp edges, and seal colonies become launch pads for vertical attacks. The shark uses landscape to its advantage. Approach is silent. Sharks can close hundreds of meters without alerting prey, exploiting blind spots under glare. They move like a shadowless predator, plotting a single violent act. Timing is everything. The shark waits until the seal is focused on the surface, then ignites a burst from below. The upward trajectory maximizes the element of surprise and impact. Breaching schoolers, adult whites sometimes launch far above the water, an extreme consequence of upward momentum. It's spectacle, violence, and proof of calculated kinetic power in a single frame. The one-bite tactic: strike, inflict critical damage, then withdraw. Not every attack is a feast. Many are strategic hits intended to immobilize and return later to feed. Sharks assess prey value. A single crippling bite to the flipper or torso may ruin mobility and induce bleeding, turning an escapee into an eventual meal through attrition. They learn. Repeated success shapes technique. Populations at famous sites like Guadalupe refine launch angles and timing across generations, a cultural memory encoded in behavior. When prey fights back, the shark's response is brutal but efficient. Re-engage if reward justifies energy. Its predatory calculus balances injury risk and future feeding gains. Sharks use deception, camouflage against seafloor, or dim silhouettes beneath glare. Prey misreads depth cues. The shark exploits optical illusions to disguise its true distance. Provocation experiments show whites are selective. They ignore small fish, target high-calorie marine mammals. The one-bite method is optimized for large-bodied prey, where crippling yields future payoff. Sometimes a bite is a bluff. Whites may take taste bites from whales or carcasses to sample food, a test to determine whether to commit to a full feeding. Energetics matter. Launching from depth is costly. The shark will only initiate a vertical ambush when thermoregulation, gut fullness, and prey value align in its favor. Nocturnal hunting changes the equation. Under moonless skies, electroreception and lateral line become primary, allowing surprise attacks where vision fails but nerves betray prey. White sharks sometimes ambush from the shadows of kelp forests. The vertical strike isn't only open water. It can be a near shore, sudden, bone-crushing ascent from cover. Juveniles employ different tactics. They hunt fish and rays, not seals, and rely less on vertical breaching. The one-bite torpedo is mainly adult specialization tied to body size. Aerial footage of breaches looks cinematic, but each launch is a calculated investment. Lift, speed, and angle all combine to isolate bite location and maximize disabling trauma. The perfect strike leaves prey stunned, bleeding, disoriented. The shark rarely needs second major strikes. Its goal is to convert a moment of force into prolonged vulnerability. Sharks remember profitable spots and patrol them. Feeding sites become territories of opportunity. Shearwaters, seals, and blubber-rich whales are targeted on repeat visits. They scavenge too. A single, crippling bite to a whale carcass may be all it takes to claim a banquet. Opportunism and ambush merge in a ruthless feeding strategy. Curiosity can trigger contact. Whites taste test objects, sometimes biting unfamiliar items to classify them. That exploratory bite can be mistaken for aggression, but is information-seeking. When multiple sharks hunt the same zone, dynamics shift. Displays, posturing, and pecking order determine who gets the prize. Violence is regulated to reduce fatal confrontation. Do great whites hunt cooperatively? Not in packs like wolves. Their interactions are transactional. Tolerance, hierarchy, and sometimes interference, all governed by food and risk. At popular feeding sites, dominance is signaled by size and persistence. Larger adults often displace juveniles. The one-bite specialist secures prime angles for launches and claims the spoils. Aggression is ritualized. Posture, gaping, and circling reduce lethal fights. When bites occur between sharks, they are usually resource disputes, not cooperative hunts. Occasionally, multiple sharks converge on a carcass, each taking quick, efficient bites. They share temporally, exchanging space for food without extended violence, a rough truce. Surprising alliances occur. Sharks follow whales to scavenge or pester. These associations are opportunistic, not cooperative, but they shape where and how attacks unfold. Sharks also compete with or avoid orcas. Orca presence alters shark behavior, sometimes forcing whites to abandon hunting grounds. Even a top predator can be dominated. Solitude defines much of their life. The great white is an individualist, built to strike alone. Social bonds are transient, subordinated to hunger and opportunity. Yet social learning occurs. Younger sharks observe successful tactics and sights. That cultural transfer refines the torpedo strike across generations, improving success rates. During disputes, teeth make the difference. A single bite between sharks can maim fins or flanks, altering future hunting ability. Violence begets long-term physiological consequences. Human presence warps social dynamics too. Chumming and baiting change behavior, training sharks to associate boats and people with food, a dangerous miscue for both sides. Now, the darkest cycles, reproduction and survival. How does the species renew itself when adulthood demands such brutal specialization? The life cycle contains sacrifice and rarity. Great whites are ovoviviparous. Eggs hatch inside the mother, and pups are born live. Mothers offer no childcare. The sea is a harsh classroom where only the swift survive. Pups are about a meter long at birth and immediately face predators, including larger sharks. Early life is a crucible. Grow fast or become someone else's meal. Mating is shrouded in mystery, violent and rare to witness. Males bite females to hold on. Mating rituals that blur affection with aggression, leaving scars as records. Gestation may last over a year. Females invest heavily. The result is fewer, larger offspring compared to fish that release millions of eggs, a strategy of quality over quantity. Juveniles develop different diets and habitats, avoiding adult competition. This ontogenetic niche shift reduces cannibalism and optimizes growth until they can execute the torpedo strike. Survivorship is low. Long maturation means population growth is slow. That slowness makes populations vulnerable to human impacts and changes in prey abundance. Sexual dimorphism exists. Females tend to be larger, possibly to support gestation and hunting larger prey. Bigger females can generate greater launch force and bite power. Filial sacrifice isn't parental. The sea enforces a brutal apprenticeship. Pups must master avoidance and strike tactics themselves, without guidance or mercy. Some mothers undertake long migrations to nursery areas. These routes are energy-expensive migrations that trade risk for a safer start for their vulnerable young. Because reproduction is slow, each adult lost is ecologically significant. The one-bite specialist evolves slowly. Human mortality pressures can cause population collapses over decades. What role does this torpedo predator play in the ocean's web? The great white shapes marine ecosystems through predation, fear, and the selective pressures it exerts. As apex predator, whites regulate prey populations, culling weak individuals and controlling behaviors. Their presence creates landscapes of fear that influence where prey feed and breed. By removing sick or old animals, sharks keep populations healthier. That purifying function echoes the brutal efficiency of the one-bite tactic, quick removal of vulnerability from ecosystems. Sharks also recycle nutrients. Carcasses and discarded remains feed a host of scavengers. A single strike ripples through trophic layers, fueling life even in death. If great whites decline, mesopredators may explode. Seal populations could rise, impacting fish stocks and kelp forests. The ecological balance is fragile, and the consequences are cascading. Conversely, increases in shark numbers can alter whale and seal behavior, shifting where they feed and breed. The torpedo strike thus shapes movements across entire seascapes. Human fishing pressure changes prey availability, forcing sharks to adapt diet and tactics. When food changes, the timing and targets of vertical strikes may shift as well. Whites are also bioindicators. Their health reflects oceanic integrity. Declines signal wider ecosystem distress, a warning from the deep that should provoke urgent attention. Tourism and research rely on healthy populations, but human-shark interactions are a tightrope. Education can protect both species, mismanagement can provoke tragedy, and misperception. We must face the consequences of interfering with a predator built to launch, bite, and dominate. Our actions can dull or amplify that ancient instrument of oceanic order. Shark finning, bycatch, and trophy hunting reduce numbers. Those losses don't just remove killers. They erode ecological functions, undermining the balance that has evolved for millennia. Climate change alters prey migration and thermal layers, forcing whites to adapt hunting grounds. The torpedo strike depends on predictable bathymetry and prey presence, both now shifting. Pollutants bioaccumulate in apex predators. Toxins in the tissues can impair reproduction, growth, and sensory systems, the very machinery that enables the vertical ambush. Human fear drives policies that often prioritize short-term safety over long-term protection. Killing a predator rarely addresses deeper ecological problems and often makes them worse. Yet, conservation success stories exist. Protected corridors, sanctuaries, and research can stabilize populations. Respecting the shark's role helps preserve the ocean's fragile architecture. Ethically, we stand at a crossroads: fear-driven eradication or sober stewardship. The great white's brutality challenges us to reconcile awe with responsibility for its survival. We are fascinated by violence, but repulsed by danger. That contradiction shapes policy and perception. To protect oceans, we must separate myth from the shark's ecological reality. Scientific study demands humility. Viewing Carcharodon carcharias purely as monster blinds us to its role and to the possibilities of coexistence through informed measures. Tourism can fund conservation if responsibly managed. When humans profit without killing, sharks gain sanctuary. That economic logic can turn fear into protection. Education rewires fear. Learning how and why these animals strike from below demystifies them and reduces reactive violence. Knowledge is the first line of ethical defense. We have traced the torpedo: tail, muscle, nerve, tooth, and tactic. The one-bite vertical ambush is not horror for horror's sake. It is evolution's brutal solution to feeding. The great white is both terrifying and essential. Each strike is an ecological instrument. Each loss of an individual echoes through food webs. Our choices determine its fate. When you imagine a shark launching from below, remember the anatomy, the senses, the behavior we explored. It is precision honed by time, not malice directed at humans. Respect means keeping distance, protecting habitats, and resisting sensational calls for extermination. The ocean's balance is fragile, and apex predators hold many threads together. If we strip them away, we lose more than fearsome images. We lose an architect of ecological order. The white shark's terror is a function, not a threat to planetary health. There is a moral mirror in the ocean's violence. We project our fears onto the shark, but the real predator is indifference. Conservation asks us to act, not merely react. Think of the torpedo strike as a lesson. Nature prioritizes efficiency, not cruelty. Our responsibility is to understand mechanisms and preserve contexts where such predators remain possible. Support marine reserves, back science-based policy, and demand humane practices. Protecting the great white protects entire ecosystems. Small choices on land ripple into survival at sea. The image lingers, a shape below, coiled energy, a single crippling bite. Brutal, efficient, awe-inspiring. The great white remains a reminder of nature's indifferent artistry. We began with a mystery and ended with understanding. The torpedo of the deep is both horror and heritage. guard it, study it, and let the ocean keep its terrible balance.